Okay, in this video, we are going over how to shade your coverage, or you do the inside coverage adjustments, outside, underneath, over the top, and when to do them. Now, when you're in man coverage, like I am here, only this linebacker is blitzing, you see when you go inside to outside, when you do the inside and outside coverage adjustments, you'll see the defensive backs move. If you go inside, if you press Y or triangle, and then left on the right stick inside, those defensive backs will cover the inside shoulder of their receivers. Now, if you go outside, they cover the outside. They start on the outside shoulder of their receiver that they're covering. Now, if you do inside, that'll help cover slants, drags, stuff that's going to the inside of the field. And it's not foolproof. It's not 100% if they're doing drags or slants and you could guess right with the inside coverage adjustments, you're going to bag it every time. That's not how it works. It's just there to give you a slight edge. I'm going to put Pollard on the slant, and now I'm going to put the inside coverage adjustments. And you see how good that was covered. Now, it's not going to always be that tight, but it helps. And I'm talking primarily right now about man coverage. I think, in my opinion, the shading is better in man coverage because when you're in zone, right? I brought up to a zone, and then you go inside or outside. Watch. No defensive back is moving to cover the inside or outside part of the shoulders of their receivers because they're in zone. They don't particularly have a man that they're covering. Now, if you, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but if you shade underneath, wire triangle and underneath, it makes those purple zones into hard flats. And then if you go over the top again, those hard flats become cloud flats. So it does have significant use against zones, but we'll get back to zones. So man coverage, so inside, covers slants and drags and helps cover anything that's going towards the inside of the field, towards the hash marks. What does underneath cover? Underneath covers, or helps cover, let's say you do smoke screens, something underneath like that, flat routes. You see how good that was covered? Underneath will take smoke screens, flat routes. That'll help against screen passes. Now, what you want against outside. Outside is anything towards the sidelines. Now, it's not going to work 100%, but look how tight that is. And I'm primarily going over man coverage right now with these coverage adjustments. So you get coverage adjustments by hitting Y or triangle, and then you just follow that with the right stick. Now, outside again would go out routes, C routes. Now, you could combine the routes too. So if your opponent, and you can try and bait your opponent too, if your opponent is trying to hit you with fade routes or streaks over the top, what I like to do is go outside first, then over the top. Over the top is exactly what it says. It'll help cover against streaks, fades. Now, it's not 100%, but it helped there. And if your opponent is trying to hit you over the top with a fade route or a streak, again, I couple it. I like to go outside first because you're going to guard the outside shoulder of the receiver, and on any fade route, you see Pollard's fade route. If you are outside first, then over the top, any fade route, the first step is going outside. It takes like a step to the left if your receiver's on the left. And the same thing, look at Gallup all the way on the right. So if you have outside first, the cornerback is already guarding against that. Then you couple that with over the top, and it could help against. And look how good it's doing. So these coverage adjustments, I think, help way better for man coverage. So we just went over coupling these coverage adjustments. Like on fade routes, you want to go outside to play the outside part of your receiver's shoulder, then over the top. But you could also couple them with drag routes, something underneath. So you would first start off by going inside, because drags are primarily going on the inside part of the field, and then underneath. So you can couple these adjustments, and look how closely that's covered, because you first started off on the inside part of his shoulder, and then you did underneath. So you could couple your adjustments. Now you can't couple them with outside and underneath. You can couple them with inside and underneath, or outside and underneath if they're going, short routes to the outside, or if they're doing short routes to the inside part of the field towards the hash lines, I would go inside and underneath. You can't couple outside and underneath. You can't couple over the top and underneath. You can't couple outside and inside, obviously. But you can couple these adjustments when it makes sense. Now, this is what I like to do. If I like to send a blitz, you can't really have that good of a blitz when you're only sending these 4 players, but then you help guard against whatever they're trying to do by your coverage adjustments. And I'm somebody that loves to blitz. I'll blitz every down. It's a fault of mine. But you couple it with these coverage adjustments, because in the middle of the game, you know what your opponent is trying to do against you. So you try to help defend it with these coverage adjustments. Now, so we went over what they do. We went over if you go inside or outside. If you're in man coverage, your receivers, your cornerbacks, for the most part, it's not safeties. It doesn't do anything to the safeties. It just does it to the cornerbacks. Usually cornerbacks that are in man coverage with a receiver. They'll move left and right when you go inside and outside. Now, let's switch to a zone. Now, like I said, if you have purple zones on the field and you play underneath coverage, those purple zones become hard flats, which I do all the time. And then if you want cloud flats, go over the top again. But when you're in a zone and you do inside or outside, nobody moves. Nobody guards against the outside or inside shoulder, because they're not manned up on anybody, so they don't know who to guard. They're playing their zone. So I would play hard flats if your opponent likes to do something like this, throw into that area a lot. Or I would also, it's not here, in a different formation where there is a running back to one side. So let me get into a different offensive formation. Now we're in cover 4 drop. So the halfback's on the right. What I would do, put this purple zone in a hard flat. And I would keep this purple zone, because there's not really too much threat of a flat zone on the left. I mean, of course, they could go on a little out route, but primarily I would like to keep a flat zone on the side of the halfback. So if the halfback does something like this, your guy's right there to make a play. So these coverage adjustments are helpful in both man and zone. Primarily me, I love to blitz and combat what they're doing with these coverage adjustments. Stay tuned for the next play.